The funeral service was strained. Turner's mother declared that Deacon Hurd was not to have a thing to do with it, and so the deacon sent over to Bath for the first congregational minister there. He came in late, brushing the wet snow from his coat and blustering about the roads, and he said all the right things at all the right moments, but it was clear that he had never met Turner's father, and so could only speak of the Lord's anointed as if the Reverend Buckminster had just stepped out of the epistle to the Galatians. They sang the hymns Turner's mother had picked out, and sang the hymn that Turner had picked out, I Have Some Friends Before Me Gone. They prayed about God's calling Reverend Buckminster home to do his work in heaven. Then the Bath minister asked if the bereaved would like to come forward and speak some words to the assembled congregation about this good man comforting others through an account of this holy man's homegoing. This part had not been planned. Turner heard his mother draw in her breath. He heard, more nearly felt, the congregation draw in its breath. He knew that the congregation would rather not have the bereaved say a single thing. And he knew that his mother was afraid that if she stood up, she might say what was truly in her heart. So he stood up instead. The Bath minister held his hand out to invite him to the pulpit and moved aside, smiling as Turner went up. Behind his father's pulpit, Turner was surprised that he was tall enough to see over it easily. My father, he began quietly. Speak up, son, said the Bath minister, glad in the hearts of this grieving congregation. But Turner had no intention of gladdening the hearts of this grieving congregation. My father is with God, just as the minister here says. But God didn't call him there because God had work for him to do. My father died because he was doing God's work here. He wanted the people of Malaga Island to live in a place that was their own. The Bath minister's smile was gone. The best way to honor my father would be to rebuild the homes on the island and invite everyone back. It would be to go down to Pownal for the Easons and... He stopped, his face tight. And for Lizzie Griffin. But I don't think any of you will do that. The Bath minister was probably wishing that the service had ended with the last prayer. So everyone on Malaga is gone, and my father is gone, maybe to do God's work in heaven. I don't know. All I know is that they're all gone. When he finished, Turner could feel again his father falling away from him. He was empty. And then, about halfway back in the sanctuary, Mr. Newton stood, his big hands set on the pew in front of him, leaning over so far that he looked like he might topple. Then Mrs. Newton stood beside him and all the little Newtons, one by one. On the other side of the aisle, close to the front, Willis Hurd stood. He looked at Turner and didn't need to say a thing. When Deacon Hurd grabbed at his arm, he ignored him. One by one, a few, not many, of the people of First Congregational stood. No one said anything. It was as quiet as if the roof had been lifted off and the new snow falling outside had blanketed them all in soft down. To Turner's mind there came again the image of his father that had been with him of late every night when he fell asleep and every morning when he woke, his father's eyes as he fell over the ledge of the granite cliff. What was in those eyes? What was he saying? Turner sat back down by his mother. She took his hand in hers. The Bath minister stepped behind the pulpit again, wheezed some to gain time, and then figured that they would conclude the service with bringing in the sheaves. It was an unfortunate choice. If he had been hoping for a sprightly rhythm, he didn't get it. Lillian Woodward played the hymn like a dirge, and there is nothing like playing a march like a dirge to irritate a congregation. Not that they needed much more to irritate them. As Lillian Woodward droned on, most of them whispered, loudly, to each other instead of singing, and their words came to Turner even over the bass, that he would stand there and lecture us. The apple doesn't fall far. If Mrs. Buckminster heard, she gave no sign. When the hymn ended, she held Turner's hand and walked behind her husband's casket as the deacons carried it out of the church. They crossed the vestibule and went down the stairs and on to Parker Head. The snow had mostly stopped, and Turner smelled the salty sea breeze taking up its place behind him, not playful, but solemn and steady. And so they came to First Congregational graveyard and committed Turner's father to the earth and to the Lord. The deacons lowered the casket into the ground and dropped the ropes in afterward. Turner took a shovel, and Mr. Newton took a shovel, and old Mr. Thayer took a shovel, and together they laid the Reverend Turner Buckminster II to rest. Then Turner took a vial of ashes from their own hearth and sprinkled them across the mounded grave, and the snow covered them.